I'm Jim Czek. With me, Ian Burns, our managing editor out there in the nation's capital. Beautiful day here in the Okanagan, beautiful fall day. It is October 23rd at 9 a.m. and we're live every weekday morning at 9 a.m. with the really big show. And we got a good show today. Mark Carney addresses the nation. That's the main topic. Carney looking for budget support. More auto sector job losses. The attack on Poilievre continues. New crime bill to be tabled today. And China as strategic partner to Canada? That's news. Conservative Party of BC asks for Rustad's resignation. And the CBC CEO, she says it herself, they're not biased. Imagine that, eh? Heard it right from the horse's mouth. They're not biased.
We might as well just turn it off now then. Let's just give up right now. She said it.
She said it. She said it right there in the committee hearing. She's like, nope, not at all. Well, let's kick it right off then. We got Mark Carney address the nation. Usually that's reserved for when you address the nation, like bigger things, but this is just a precursor to the budget that they're trying to get through. Maybe they're trying to get some buy-in from the CBC and get the liberal bots out there working to get it approved.
Well, it's to the talking points, and exactly as predicted, as they would have known, they'd been 100% certain in the Liberal Party's PR department that they released a list of things that they thought Mark Carney talked about, like chapters of a book almost, and the CBC and the rest of the media, of the sort of big media outlets, have just read the book chapter by chapter, talking about, there are certain sacrifices that are going to have to be made, ladies and gentlemen, but it's in the interests of Canada and our glorious economy.
But the good news
Stuff
is,
like that.
Hey, the good news is CBC won't be making any sacrifices. They should have said that after, right? They should have said.
Well, quite the opposite. We are sacrificing so that they can have more money.
That's right. That's
the sacrifice.
Anyway, let's listen to the first clip here.
We need to be clear-eyed about where we stand today so we can build for tomorrow. Let me give the current economic context. I'm channeling my old central banker days here. Look, the situation in Canada now, the actual situation, is that the rate of inflation has come down. It's come down sharply. But it's also the case that the cost of living is still far too high. It's also the situation in Canada right now that we're building a lot more homes. Housing starts are up this year. And affordability of those houses are improving. But it's still challenging. We need to build many, many more homes, and we need to build them a lot faster. This government is getting immigration under control, with asylum claims down by 1/3 and new temporary foreign workers down by more than 70% this year. To match immigration levels with our needs and our capacity to welcome them, this budget will include Canada's new immigration plan to do better for newcomers and for everyone. It's also the fact that in this economy, we are creating jobs as a whole across it. And it is a fact that we are forecast to be the second fastest growing economy in the G7 over the course of the next 2 years. Even though some critical sectors, I mentioned earlier, autos, steel, lumber, forest products, aluminum, and some regions are facing big, big pressures. So the facts are that at present, despite everything, despite these big changes, our economy is holding up. But it's equally true that if we don't act now, these pressures will only grow. And more fundamentally, our goal is not just to do reasonably well, but to grow stronger than the rest of the G7. And as we work to do so, I want to make this promise to Canadians. I will always be straight about the challenges that we face and the choices that we must make. And to be clear, we won't transform our economy easily or in a few months. It will take some sacrifices, and it will take some time. Our government will work relentlessly to cut waste and drive efficiencies. And when we have to make difficult choices, we will be thoughtful, we'll be transparent, and we'll be fair. We will work collaboratively with our colleagues across the aisle to build, protect, and empower Canadians. We won't play games. We won't waste time. And we won't hold back. We will do what it takes. We will play to win. We will bet on Canada and all Canadians.
Where is he getting
I
these?
love the new language.
Where is he getting these projections? Because I've seen lots of projections that show Canada will be dead last in the G7. He's got it that
The reason he said 2 years is because it's the IMF prediction, which includes it's like a medium term forecast, and he's looking ahead to, I think it's 26, 27, or it might even be 27 to 28. He's looking at the future, which has Canada behind the US, number 2 in the G7. But there's a dramatic change of language there. We were promised many, many times. You know, we're sat here waiting for him to fulfill his promise that we would be the strongest economy in the G7, the fastest growing economy in the G7. But that's changed now. Apparently now we're satisfied with second fastest in a couple of years. It's this kind of slipperiness, and this is the thing. I have to stress this. We always talk about the media. We'll probably sound like cranks to some people, but I must stress this. I haven't heard this anywhere, and I've been feasting on the CBC, Canadian Press, and all the rest of it. I haven't seen them highlight that he's just slipped this in. All of a sudden, it's no longer the fastest growing economy. It's the second fastest in a couple of years, according to the IMF. And you know, with excuses attached to the end, despite the fact that we're having all this trouble. It's a little bit upsetting, isn't it? It's a bit sad to see that he's not held to that standard, is he? And we know for certain that if Pierre Poilievre or Donald Trump, heaven forbid, Donald Trump says something like that, it would be fact-checked by the CBC, by the media in this country.
I mean, you know, if you're just listening to that speech, you'd say, well, that's pretty good, but there's a lot of holes in there. And our CBC government-funded media, obviously, if you listen to them, they were basically applauding before he even started.
It's actually, yeah. Listening to the radio was the worst. I was just mentioning that off air there. The Logic, which is like a news outlet, they have a parliamentary reporter. They brought her in. So it wasn't even the CBC, the CBC's premier radio show in the morning. They brought in her from another publication. And I was thinking, all right, here we go then. She's gonna spill the truth. She's gonna drop some truth nukes on the CBC audience. And all she had to say was basically a reworded press release from the Liberal Party. Just like, oh yeah, he's talking about sacrifices that have to be made because in these turbulent economic times, of course, we have to invest. It's like, I might as well have just listened to Melanie Jolie, you know? Or the CBC, for that matter.
Yeah, and he said the housing starts are. What did he say? The housing starts are better than last year.
Well, it is actually, yeah. That's what that is true. Yeah, CMHC released that. It was last month, I think. You know, it's just starts though, and it's compared to last year, which was a bad year. So it's. Yeah. As usual, as you know as well as anybody, you can fiddle with numbers quite easily.
Far off from the promised 500,000, but now
that is the other thing. That's the real fact check. Yeah. Is that the target was a lot higher than that, and it's nowhere near the target.
And it's what is it, about 270 or 265 or something like that? We did the number just the other day, 260 something, I think.
I actually can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, it's a 277 in September. And that's a 4.1%, I think, increase. Oh, no, sorry. Actual housing starts, 19% year-over-year increase in places where people actually live. But yeah, I mean, it's in the 270s either way, which is just a little bit over half what it's supposed to be.
Let's listen to one more clip here.
Long before Confederation, our country was forged by Indigenous peoples. Coureurs de bois, and voyageurs who mapped this continent and built vast trading networks from coast to coast to coast before the Americans had even left St. Louis. When the Second World War ended, Canada was ambitious, determined, and united in a mission to build big things. the St. Lawrence Seaway, the Trans-Canada Highway, Expo 67, the CN Tower. Nous avons construit de nouveaux quartiers pour des centaines de milliers de vétérans et de leurs familles et ouvert de nouvelles universités pour lancer leur carrière. On avait le sentiment d'avoir la main sur notre avenir. We used to build things in this country. We can build again. We used to explore this country. We can chart new courses again. We used to take big, bold risks in this country. It is time to swing for the fences again. We learned a little lesson about swinging for the fences a couple nights ago, as I recall. And this is what the upcoming budget will be about: building, taking control, and winning. We will make generational investments with a plan to protect our communities, our borders, our way of life. We will build a stronger economy where everyone has a chance to get ahead. And we will empower Canadians with new opportunities, better careers, and a lower cost of living.
I'm puzzled though on the one he says the First Nations were here before the Americans left St. Louis. There was First Nations in the United States as well. So what does that comparison even mean?
Well, he started talking about the voyageurs, didn't he? I mean, they were not First Nations, or at least not all of them. They were French Canadians, many of the voyageurs. So I think he confused himself. I think it was a way for him to do exactly what he did, which is, before the Americans left St. Louis. It was just a way. It's a way for him to stick the elbows in without actually doing it in an honest way. It's just a way to take a shot at the Americans. He did it a couple of times. Obviously, that very low-hanging fruit with the baseball metaphor, that was also another kind of bit of a dig at the Americans, wasn't it? But it's crap. It's feeble anyway. It's a feeble argument anyway, because if he's saying Canadians, as in settlers of European origin, that they explored the continent before the Americans, it just seems a little bit foolish anyway. I mean, a lot of these explorers who are Canadian, or considered Canadian, were English anyway. They were the same people as the Americans. It's a very trivial distinction to make, I find. But certainly, if you're going to talk about French Canadians, yeah, they did some very interesting exploration before the English really did. But I mean, goodness me, it's a pretty obscure discussion, that, isn't it?
It didn't make any sense to me, so I thought.
I mean, Lightning Rod. I'm sorry. If you're going to argue, yeah, Mr. Lightning Rod, at least be honest. He mentioned the voyageurs, didn't he?
Yeah.
Why are you talking? You're talking about something else. You're not addressing my point. It's a straw man argument.
But I didn't get the jump. All of a sudden, you were talking about exploration, and then it was like, we're going to build things again. What? I'm just like, where are we going here? Like, yeah. Anyway.
But no, I think on it that I'm pretty confident in what I said. The reason it was done, it's not been done to actually say anything. It's not meant to be a point. It's just that wink to the camera, like, gotcha, Americans, but without doing it in his, election mode, where he was talking about how dangerous the Americans were and how they were, the more candid language. It was a way to do it, just like he thought he was doing in the Economist interview, where he implied that Trump doesn't understand economics 101.
Yeah. And then, yeah. I got a lot more to say, but we're gonna listen to one more clip here, and then we'll talk a little bit longer.
That Canada has the values to which the world aspires. Canada has always been, and we always will be, committed to fundamental human rights, to human dignity, and to individual freedom. We are a pluralistic society. Our cities are the most diverse in the world, places where people bring the best of their cultures. We have a public square that's loud, that's diverse and free. Et les Canadiens et Canadiennes valorise la collaboration et le partenariat.
That's good.
Et nous sommes.
I mean, we could argue that one for sure. The public square that's free. I mean, the freest in the world.
I just found that to be an astonishing misrepresentation of the reality in this country. And if you're interested in a more sort of long-winded, long-form discussion of this, see our interview with Jonathan Kay, where we talk about the Canadian press, the Canadian media, I mean, versus, for example, the British media and the American media. Just have a look at that and listen and see if you agree with what he said there.
I've done so many interviews too with constitutional lawyers too. We don't have the freedom of speech that the Americans have. And that is a fact. And also Bill C-18 in Canada that the Liberals put into place 2 years ago is stifling and censoring independent media outlets across Canada. Close to 100 have failed since they put this into place. We've asked them to remove it many times, sent many letters, and even asked the question directly to Mark Carney. His only answer was he's going to give more money to the CBC. Media outlets, if there is an independent, and I think I interviewed that guy from media, if there isn't independent voices in Canada, we lose so much in what should be a democracy. And we're going to fund just a government-funded media, which many people have said the CBC is basically just an arm of the Liberal government. And Bill C-18 is a huge impediment to freedom of speech in this country and access to information. The Liberals who said that the Meta was the devil spend millions of dollars on Meta while they continue to suppress media outlets from putting stuff on Meta. They say it's too important not to allow or not to spend money on Meta so they can get their message out. But I guess it's not important enough for news outlets to get their message out. That alone is the problem.
It's also, yeah, I mean, that's like legislative, like it's very concrete. You can just point to that and have like a very sort of formal, literal conversation about it. But there's also the kind of what we talked about with Jonathan Kay. There's also a kind of cultural dimension here. And we have to admit that in general, the Canadian sort of culture when it comes to discussing things in the open in a candid fashion is very different from other democracies. So this idea that he's talking about, like, it's one of our great strengths that we have this kind of like bustling, wild, raucous public square where all kinds of ideas are debated. No, that's not true. That's simply not true. And another thing you could do, go on our Twitter feed now, watch that little clip of Jonathan Kay talking about the Kamloops Residential School and the ground radar searches there. Just have a look at that. Have a look at what he says. Bear in mind, he's not just a nobody. He's a very experienced Canadian journalist with a lot of interesting opinions. He's not partisan. Go and have a look at that and tell me if you think that Canada has a vibrant public square. And then the other point I just have to mention here, where he says, because this, by the way, he did the classic two things. And the first one was oil, gas, all the rest of it. And, well, briefly mentioned oil and gas, but it was all about energy and critical minerals and stuff. And then he's like, our second advantage. And that's when he said this, that we have the values to which the world aspires. When was the last time the world aspired to the values of Canada? I mean, is he for real? Has he just said that without thinking? Or does he actually believe that? It's just not true. The rest of the world now, India, China, Africa, the Middle East, Asia, they don't aspire to our style of liberal democracy. They don't like it. They think that we're stupid, by and large. It's a ridiculous statement to make.
Well, they did that interview with the European, I can't remember, I think Polish ambassador, and he laughed at Canada. He actually laughed and said, "You guys are a joke. Like you wouldn't sell the LNG to us directly. You sell it to the Americans, and then they resell it to us and mark it up because you said there was no business case for LNG." It's absolutely
but this is like
crazy.
This discussion now is one justification for the existence of the United Nations. Because to prove my point as evidence, just listen in on the United Nations. Listen to what they talk about. Do you seriously think that those people aspire to imitate Canadian values and Canadian principles and to be like Canada? It's just completely false. It's a completely absurd thing to say and so wrong. And tragically, it is literally just us two that are going to say this. I'm pretty confident in the Canadian media landscape, nobody else is going to even realize that he said that. It's obviously transparently false that the world wants to be like Canada.
I also did the interview with a constitutional lawyer, Lisa Bildy, and she said the Americans have basically absolute freedom of speech with their First Amendment rights. We do not have that here in Canada. We have a Charter of Rights that is basically, she read out the paragraph. You can go watch the thing, and that comes with guidelines. Like, you have freedoms with guidelines and guardrails. And then the Liberal Party has been continually compressing those guidelines and guardrails with all these bills. And I just did an interview with John Carpay from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and they continue to compress our freedoms. We've seen this over and over. We've seen this movie over and over and over again. And they talk about how they want to get rid of, X, and they want to get rid of like different platforms. Like, this is not, like, the freedom of speech in Canada is being suppressed more and more and more. And Bill C-18 is a big part of that, the Online News Act. And many media experts in Canada have said the same thing. Many people have warned them what would happen. And you would look at the results of what's happened and you would almost say, was that the intention?
Some have certainly asked that question, yeah. I'm just being sniped at here by Lightning Snipe, who says there's tens of millions of immigrants from all over the world that would disagree with me about Canadian values. Right. I just have to ask you, please, let's be honest with each other. You be honest too. Do you think that those people want to come to Canada because of the values? Do you think that's why? Or do you think they want to come to Canada for the standard of living? I don't think that's a particularly difficult question to answer.
One of the things, we've given Lightning Rod lots of airplay here. He also can't dominate everything because he's obviously a liberal shill here because, this one here with Elon Musk, I think I'm going to ignore him from here. Elon Musk is arbitrator of freedom of speech. I do, actually. So there you go. There's your answer.
I don't know about arbiter, but he's certainly a believer in it.
Yeah. And then, Carney's warned about these sacrifices then, and everybody's kind of wondering what these sacrifices are, which programs will be cut. There's so much fraud, waste, and abuse right now. We talked about it yesterday. The military don't have running toilets, not all of them, but they said the auditor said the military housing is unfit for habitation. Unsafe drinking water, deteriorating walls. So they are underfunded, under-equipped, underpaid, and also undermanned because people won't sign up. Lightning Rod maybe should sign up. He knows everything. And now they don't even have housing that's fit for habitation. But we pay a consul for Canada, Tom Clark. We bought him a penthouse for $8.8 million. He has a $5,000 coffee machine in there, $15,000 in strata fees every month. I wonder if that's a taxable benefit, if he's paying taxes on that. That'd be a good question to ask, because that's a huge taxable benefit. He's living in this posh penthouse while our military don't even have safe drinking water. Explain it to me. Who's making the sacrifice?
It's the kind of thing that would result in a massive lawsuit. Maybe even the UN would turn up or somebody like that if it was asylum seekers, let's say, for example, who have been given that kind of accommodation. I always find this fascinating that when it's the people who really should be in the sort of top 3 most important people in this country and most respected people who theoretically defend it from conquest by hostile outsiders, as is so often the case, they just have the worst possible conditions. They're treated the worst of all.
But one of the good things, this is where you kind of hide in half-truths, because he at least recognized a few things that I haven't heard him recognize yet. Like, Canada is the 3rd largest in oil reserves, 4th largest in natural gas. But there's also that book he says, I'm the same me, values, and he said 80% of that needs to stay in the ground. But where's the pipeline then? Say the words pipeline. Say the words pipeline. Northern Gateway Pipeline, say the words. Why doesn't he say the words? Because that's our key. That's our key to success. 85% clean energy, electricity grid. Okay. Critical minerals and rare earth potential. Yeah, potential. Because guess who just signed a deal for rare earths with the Americans? That'd be Australia. They look like they're a little further away. How did they get a deal? Remember, he said he was the deal maker. How did Australia get a deal, and we don't have a deal? And we're in their backyard. Explain it to me.
But he was asked on that point you're making. He was asked this morning, because he's in Ontario this morning to do the nuclear reactors, which we'll talk about in a sec, I guess. But he was asked just point blank, you talk about sacrifices. What are they? Spell it out. And he was very tempted. He almost did on 2 occasions, almost spelled out, but then he was like, oh, I'm not going to front run the budget here. But what he did say, which is quite confusing, but nonetheless interesting, he said there are certain things that we're not going to be able to make progress on as fast as we would have liked. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And, if we're talking about pipelines and energy and whatnot, I mean, a lot of people, Danielle Smith, I'm sure, would have been watching that and would have inferred he's talking about climate change and trying to bring emissions down and all the rest of it. But, I mean, realistically, who knows? But that was also my impression. And Tim Hodgson was next to him. I think that he's going to he is going to get rid of the emissions cap. I do think that's going to happen.
Well,
and a few other things.
I believe the emission cap goes, but in its place comes the carbon grift of the century, and that'll be carbon capture. So no emissions cap, but
that's coming in.
Here's this carbon grift called carbon capture, and you're going to basically pay to produce oil and gas. And guess who's going to collect it? Because guess who is a big carbon capture company out there? Brookfield. Isn't that amazing? So
New York City's Brookfield Asset Management.
Lightning rod, you can watch this. Watch this, what's happening. Emission cap goes, and carbon capture comes in, and it'll be a tax on oil and gas companies because they'll have to buy carbon credits from these schemes. And we've covered this many times, and you can go watch the thing on it. American companies moving to Canada to capture some of the tax credits, 75 cents on the dollar is Carbon Capture USA. And then they're going to suck it out of the air with these huge fans, put it in a truck, and then truck it somewhere, and then inject it deep into the ground, and then sell these carbon capture credits to oil companies. Isn't that amazing? American company comes here, gets 75 cents on the dollar tax credits, and then the ability to tax our oil fields producers.
And then they take all that money, taxpayers' money, and buy a mansion in Florida or something. So none of it even gets recycled through the Canadian economy.
And then he said, you're reminding Canadians we can build things, we can build again. Why did you take Brookfield to the U.S.? Lead by example. Bring Brookfield back. Bring Brookfield back. Bring your investments back. Show us the way. Show us the way. Show us the way. I mean, capital is fleeing. And this is report after report after report from institutions of capital fleeing Canada. And that's not just money. It's also brain trust leaving Canada. And again, the military is just, they say they're going to invest in the military. We got this submarine fleet that, what is it? I don't know. We bought 2 used diesel subs from the UK garage sale that are got to be like 30, 40 years old now. And they were old when we bought them. And we got a flight of, our fighter jets are 40 years old. Like we count our lifeboats in our military. We count the lifeboats in our. We can't build a ship. It seems like we're sending the ferries over to China to be built.
Half the jets don't work as well, which is pretty important.
Yeah. Anyway, there's so much there. We could spend all day on it, but he's looking for somebody to pass his budget, though. So he met with Poilievre, he met with Blanchet, and he met with Elizabeth May and Don Davies. I don't think he's getting anywhere with Blanchet. I doubt if he gets anywhere with Poilievre. So it's the bottom 2 there. Elizabeth May.
I don't see any progress with Elizabeth May. As well, just look at that picture. She just looks like furious. She's like, look at this. Item I, point B. It's just Carney just. This is when Carney is kind of funny, and you kind of sympathize with him because you can tell he's just like, "What the hell is this? Get out of my office." He's
like Canada's Elizabeth Warren, but it seems like the CBC give her the microphone way more times than they give the microphone to any Conservative MPs. They seem to like.
Can you imagine if what's his name, Maxime Bernier?
Yeah,
Can you
when does
imagine
he
if
get
he
the?
won a
Yeah.
he won a seat? I mean, he doesn't actually have any seats, but imagine if he did. Do you think he would get a fraction of the attention that she gets? She's on the extreme left or the far left. Would somebody considered to be on the far right get the same attention? My instinct is no.
I mean, you go back and watch yesterday's show, and we talked about all the cabinets that are just in disarray, absolute disarray, and all these people still have their jobs. Go back and watch that show. It's a good show to watch. We're talking about the military. It's like the military is that audit report, and then McGuinty there is just like, oh, like, would you live in the housing? Well, we got to do better. We seem to do better for Tom Clark. Tom Clark seems to be doing quite well. Hey.
But also, just like random civil servants, like what we saw the statistic, $136,000 a year or something is the average salary for public servants. Yeah. Obviously, factored into that is enough money for them to get adequate, dignified housing. So they're catered to as well, yeah. And that includes all kinds of people that have jobs, you know, that even they would probably struggle to justify or explain.
Yeah, and then here's Blanchette. That's what he thinks of the budget. Let's listen in on what Mr. Blanchette has to say.
The 6 demands that you're putting forward, is that contingent on the Bloc voting in favor of the bill? Do you have to get all 6 to get a yes vote?
You know what? Those demands from the Bloc, which are absolute conditions, have been known and repeated since before the election. They always knew what we stand for. We say this is what we want. They knew it. So instead of sending ministers in the hallways of the parliament to cry about the fact that we do not help them, which is not our job is to help Quebecers, they should say, okay, we will consider what you ask. And I even tell them that they will say it is expensive, and I will say it is much less expensive than the money that you give year after year to the oil and gas industry, which does not need it. So we have a complete solution. When you send 3 ministers from Quebec to speak to the media about complaints that the Bloc is not nice enough with them, poor little guys that they are the government. And I do not expect to become Prime Minister of Canada anytime soon. So we say what we want for Quebec. It seems to be the object of a quite large consensus within Quebec population. It's their responsibility and only theirs to find somebody to vote with them. They know our conditions, and if they wake up a little bit late, it's once again their problem.
Yeah,
very hostile chap.
He's never going to be for Team Canada. Like, I mean, that's he's in it for Quebec, and he always has been.
He's not in it for Quebec. He's in it for people that want Quebec to be an independent country. He doesn't care about. Go to Montreal and ask just a randomer in the street what they think of somebody like that. Chances are they'll despise him, because Montreal, the heart of Quebec, is full of people who fought for the Liberal Party. They believe in Canada, but obviously this bloke pretends that everybody in Quebec thinks the same thing.
We do have one more clip here from Mr. Carney in Parliament here.
Mr. Speaker, we promised to cut taxes for every Canadian. 22 million Canadians have their taxes cut. We promised to cut taxes on first-time home builders. They've been cut. We promised to cut the carbon tax. It's been cut. You weren't here. It's been cut. It's been cut. And we promised to build this country strong. November 4th, this House will have a choice. Are you with us for those single mothers? Are you with us for those farmers? Are you with us to build this country strong so they can get it?
The more he spends, the more things cost. Does he acknowledge at least that every dollar he spends comes out of the pockets of hardworking Canadians?
Mr. Speaker, We are putting more dollars in the pockets of hardworking Canadians because we cut taxes on 22 million for 22 million Canadians. Mr. Speaker, our focus is putting even more dollars in the pockets of hardworking Canadians. That is why we will have the most ambitious capital investment program this country's ever seen, the most ambitious home building program this country has ever seen, the biggest investment in defense and our industrial capacity that this country has ever seen, and the biggest and most effective climate competitiveness strategy that this country has ever seen.
Take that, Pierre.
I don't even have much to say on that. I'm just there are people have heard enough for us on that. I mean, it's just the same.
I just want to go back to Blanchet, if I can, and just mention the last thing he said. He's talking about subsidies and that how subsidies to oil and gas companies and how get rid of that and that'll solve everything basically, and that's what he likes to rail against. It's just the goal of that man to come out, this Quebec nationalist, to come out and complain about subsidies. Quebec is the cherished, coddled, treasured child of Canada that is subsidized in the extreme in so many ways. Not just the obvious ways, but also things like supply management, obviously, which isn't just a direct subsidy. That also loses Canada God knows how much money because we can't do trade deals with countries because of that one issue, which is in place to appease Quebec, basically, pretty much just Quebec. I just find it so outrageous. And that's before you even look at the fact that the primary subsidization that goes on in Canada is quite literally from the oil and gas companies, from those royalties to Quebec in the form of equalization payments. How do you? But there's a sort of serious point to be made here. How do you even engage with people like that? How do you even have a conversation with somebody like that who almost might as well be another species? It's like it's a completely different perspective on the world. So it's almost impossible to meet with somebody like that and actually agree on basic facts.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say some stuff because there's some discussion on the CF-18s, and we kind of pick apart the CF-18s quite a bit. And the CF-18s are just they're too old. They're from 1980s, man. Come on, and here the stealth and survivability, they don't compete with F-35s, F-22s, and the Chinese J-20s. They don't work even for Arctic missions. The CF-18's range is barely adequate. Refueling is often required. Maintenance costs, the sensor, they're still on an analog system. Like how long would they last against the American or Russian or Chinese? I mean,
or even the Middle East where they've bought loads of F-35s. They've got better kit than we have. Places like Qatar, they've got better stuff than we have.
And just for your again, Australia was at the White House. We should be a bigger friend than we should have got a deal way before Australia. Australia's at the White House, and get what they bought from the Americans: a nuclear submarine. We're in talks to buy diesel submarines from a couple of different suppliers in Europe. Because who's buying diesel submarines when you can buy a nuclear submarine? Or does anybody know the difference? And here's the Globe and Mail. Hey, here's the Globe and Mail's Robin Ernbach pitching how we can save some money. I guess, when they say you got to make some sacrifices, the media's out there making sure who's going to be first in line to make the sacrifice. She's saying, can we stop handing out billions to wealthy seniors? What is that? What is she saying? Stop with the pensions? The pensions that you paid into your whole life, you told it was your pension, the CPP. So now they're saying just stop giving it to them? They already claw back most of it. You know what I mean? Why should a Canadian pay it? Just tell people it's a tax then, Robin, instead of saying it's your pension. Because when you typically pay into a pension, you deserve the pension when you retire. Do you not?
Well, I think her counter argument, if I'm reading her accurately, or the counter argument of people who make that argument, would be that it's unfair because these benefits, the pensions and other benefits, they're being paid by people, the younger generations, who won't get them. If economists know the first thing about the future.
I mean,
if they've predicted the future accurately.
Sadly, that's
the
been said
pension
about.
system is going to collapse because of Canada's terrible demographics. It
Sadly,
will collapse.
Sadly, that was said to me when I was 19 years old as well. And here I am about
I don't know why, though. When you were 19 years old, Canada's demographics were pretty decent.
They said that you wouldn't get your pension back then. It was the same stuff. But again, don't call it a pension then. Call it a tax. Because if you pay into a pension, like if you're in a company pension, that's why Alberta wants to leave. If you pay into a pension plan at your work, they don't then decide to you, they don't come up to you and say, oh, well, you made better than Bob, so you're not getting your pension.
I agree with the use of the term pension because it isn't a pension, is it? It's a benefit. It's not the same thing, and it can be taken away.
Canada Pension Plan.
Indeed, yeah, and the same fraud is being pulled all over the Western world, where demographics have collapsed. So we're in a situation now where I think the average age in Canada is just over 40 now, which is just thoroughly insane. It's insane to even say those words. The average age in Canada is over 40. It's going to keep going higher and higher and higher. There are just going to be a multitude of old people and a very small number of young people earning money and paying taxes to support those people. It's just obviously not going to work. The whole thing is going to collapse. But this is where, Mark Carney comes up, talks about sacrifices, and we're going to make the hard decisions, and I'm going to tell you the truth. I haven't heard him say a thing about this, something that everybody knows. Never mind him, an economic expert. Everybody knows that we're facing this disaster in the coming decades.
Like as far as our military go, it's people, that make excuses for our military that have led to the neglect that it's in right now. And saying, oh, the CF-18s are good enough. We have this, we have that. Or Trudeau, like we can just rely on the Americans. And then now you're sticking sticks in the Americans' eyes. I mean, we do rely on the Americans. That's the honest to God truth. Protecting our North is America protecting our North. We are not. Like I just told you, the CF-18s can't even go up there. Like the last 2 times we scrambled jets for aircraft that were coming into our airspace that were questionable. Who met them? Was it CF-18s? Nope. F-35s from the United States of America. Did you say thank you? Or are you just going to stick another stick in their eye? Anyway.
J.D. Vance. Did you say thank you once?
Did you say thank you once? There you go. And here you go. National Post put this out. New report card gives Liberal government a D in fiscal accountability. This thing they're trying to float is a stick in the eye of the accounting profession of Canada, the CPAs. You're saying that, yeah, that's not good enough, like PSAP rules are not good enough. We're going to do this new. This is all trickery. This is all trickery. And then they bring in this IMF shill to kind of sell it to Canada. And this is what they do. It's just shilling. And it's absolutely, I mean, most people are going to get it. Like, the banks aren't going to buy into it. Do you know what I mean? Like anybody with half a brain is not going to buy into this shill. So they're trying to sell it to Joe the public. And then these people like these liberal shills on here will go and then start screaming at people and just like, look what the IMF says. Well, they haven't got a clue.
And look what this retired PBO says that we found somewhere. Found him in the mountains. Fallen at him.
The guy actually doing the job and been there for over a decade. He says the budget is shocking, stupefying, unsustainable, and that we're staring into the abyss. Discredit him. Discredit him. Don't even listen to him. He's obviously, that's why we the accounting standards in Canada obviously are junk. So we had to go to the IMF and like, oh, there's a new presentation. So then get rid of all the accounting standards. Let every company just do whatever they want. Right? Why not? Just dress them up, boys. Free for all. You just go find yourself a shill from some other country and then say, hey, look at the way they do it here. They recognize revenue. Well, we did it here in BC too, right? Where the finance minister recognized revenue in 1 year. That's not going to come for I think it's over a period of 8 or 9 years. But just recognize it all in 1 year. Anyway. More bad news though. More bad news. A PRACAR ends Canadian production of the trucks sold in the U.S. And that's another 300 layoffs. This is them protecting the auto sector. Remember Jolie yesterday? She's talking to people. She's pointing her finger. She's talking to people. And talking's not doing any work. Let's listen to this clip here.
us at a truck manufacturing plant in Quebec, in Sainte-Thérèse, Quebec, just north of Montreal, where we're getting news that 300 jobs are being eliminated. This plant makes heavy trucks, the Peterbilt brand of trucks, and now the union involved is condemning those layoffs, saying the 300 workers are the latest victims of Donald Trump's trade war. The union adds the time is running out for negotiations between Canada and the U.S. to come up with some kind of a deal. We should point out, not only does the facility manufacture light and medium Peterbilt trucks, also Kenworth trucks, and a big wrinkle here, President Trump has said that as of November 1st, medium and heavy-sized trucks that are made outside of the United States will be hit with a 25% tariff. Again, he wants these trucks built domestically within the United States, not in other countries like Canada. This plant has laid off workers previously this year as a result of all the trade uncertainty. The headquarters, by the way, it is an American company. The headquarters are in Washington State.
Somebody's asking about John Rustad. We're going to come to that in our BC section. We do have it in here, so yeah.
Also quite interesting, somebody here asks, all those people getting laid off in the auto industry, well, the point made by this person is there are too many temporary foreign workers, so they're not going to get other jobs. But that just reminded me of Doug Ford this morning. Doug Ford, like Mr. Autos, he was coming out with some very interesting lines today that it sort of suggests that he's kind of given up on the auto sector, and he was kind of saying, we're going to get you other opportunities and things like that. It's kind of, that's not language I've heard from him lately on that. So, and then the question is, what opportunities? Because as this chap points out, or woman points out, you know, where are they going to go? There aren't a lot of jobs knocking around, really, are there?
You remember when we interviewed Bruce Ralston, the forest minister at the time? This is about a year ago now. And then, they shut the mill down in Bear Lake. And then Canfor shut down that mill. And then they also said they weren't going ahead with their project in Houston. And then they also cut some shifts in Prince George because they said that BC doesn't have certainty or access to fiber. Bruce Ralston's answer was similar to what Doug Ford just said. Oh, we'll retrain you in different areas. And I said, what areas? Like I said, what other areas? Like Bear Lake. That town is built around a sawmill. The little coffee shop, restaurant relies on the guys that work at the sawmill. You know, the whole economy there relies on that mill. So what are their houses worth? I mean, that whole town is done. He said, well, like there's a success story. There's somebody there that started selling, I can't remember what it was, and I'm just going to make an example up here. Moose tufting blankets on the internet, and they're doing quite well. Okay. That's one person out of the 400 or 500 there started slogging away on the internet. That's success story. What about the rest of them?
Yeah.
What about the rest of them?
I remember that now that you mention it. I remember that, and it was dreadful.
You know what I mean? And that's what Doug Ford's going to say. Like, yeah, hey, we'll retrain you. You're going to be doing what? These guys in the auto sector are making like over $100K on these jobs.
Yeah, and bringing in USD. And
they don't
it's not just selling random trinkets or whatever.
And I worked in the sawmill industry. I also worked in the mining industry. These are not skills that are easily transferable. Yeah, I can run a cutoff saw, right? You know what I mean? I can put the wheels on a Toyota. Okay, how does that apply to what you want to do here? So I have a here's a pitch for anybody that wants to listen, conservative, liberal. The NDP doesn't matter, but here's the pitch you can make to the United States of America to win our auto sector back. Ready? Tell the Americans, you don't want to build EVs, you don't want to sell EVs, let us do all the EVs, and don't tariff our EVs. We'll do GM EVs up here, because they are making some. GM, Ford, and that will just become EV plants, because that fixes our EV thing, and then there's no tariffs going back and forth. And then we become the EV builder, and then also make a deal with Tesla, stop punishing Tesla. And I'm sure Trump would probably say, make all the EVs you want. I don't care.
Would he? I don't know.
I think he would, because he wouldn't care. But on the other side of that, stop coming up with like goofy things, like we're going to make this van that didn't exist before, and we're going to make a Canadian EV company. No, you're not. No, you're not. Stop being silly. Just stop being silly. We're going to talk about the attack on Poilievre is still ongoing. I mean, we won't play this clip here, but this attack on Poilievre is a big distraction. And, you know, they're saying that some MPs were going to cross the floor yesterday. Did they cross? How many of them crossed?
No.
They said they had it on. I didn't listen to Rosemary Barton, but I know that they were putting out stories saying that that there was a couple of MPs that were going to cross because they were so embarrassed by Pierre Poilievre. Where are they? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, they even asked him at the press conference. They screamed it at him.
They said 3 conservatives were going to cross.
Five. They asked. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Where are they? They must have crossed already. But
I mean, maybe they're going to vote for the budget or something like that, and then it would explain what they mean. But yeah, they've certainly not defected.
We're going to leave the Poilievre story there because I mean it's just silliness. Here's another cabinet minister here, the Veteran Affairs Minister. I think she's the 8th Minister of Veteran Affairs in 6 years. Lots of continuity there, eh? They actually had to ask her if she's okay because the opposition is questioning her as she stared blankly under routine questioning at the committee hearing, asked for details of the signature program in her own department. She just sat there speechless until she was pointed to scripted remarks in her binder. Do you know what I mean? Just like didn't know. Are these robots that are working there or what?
I'm disappointed in Blacklock that they didn't put her salary there. Usually they do that, don't they? When someone is obviously out of their depth, they usually include a massive salary to go alongside it.
Yeah, I mean, and it says in April 23, you put out a strategy. 2.5 years later, in late 2025, you're telling me the data you have is from 2021. Like, who's collecting this data? Why can't we get data? Like, what's, you know, the same thing we asked for the spend for Meta from the Liberals after the election. They told us $5.5 million they spent from January to March. And then we asked for an update. What was that, in June? Something like that?
Numerous times, yeah. But the most recent one, yeah, I think so.
And then they said that they're not going to release that information now until 2026. Wonder why.
And that only happened once the Carney team was in place to give orders. So it was the kind of interim. It was the Trudeau people and the interim people, whoever they were, that they were willing to give that information. But you know, that suggests to me that there was an order given from the top to sort of give out less information.
And they want tougher gun laws here in Canada. When they can't even look after their own guns. The Canadian Border Services is responsible for enforcement of gun laws, has gaps in the management of its own firearms. And that's from an internal audit. They got to get rid of these internal audits. They're just embarrassing.
I'm sure that's on the agenda.
Maybe that's where they're going to save some money. We found no evidence of formal regional oversight activities related to the safeguarding and inventory of tracking firearms and ammunition across the agency. At 7 of the 14 sites, management said there was verifications that were performed on a quarterly basis. The remaining sites were not even aware of the requirements. The sites did not keep records of verification since there was no requirement by policy to report the results. Only 1 in 15 of the sites had used the manager's daily firearm inspection checklist to conduct an annual inspection. But they want to take your gun away. But hey.
But we talked about data. We talked about numbers and the lack of transparency. That kind of presumes that numbers are being collected and compiled in an accurate way. And maybe that's a presumption that we shouldn't make. Because even if we get the numbers, how accurate are they? If this kind of thing is going on at one of the most important institutions in this country, you know, where else is it happening?
It was a big deal when we gave them guns, too. I don't know if you remember that, but it was back in 2006 that they started arming at the land crossings. The Department of Transport in 2022 approved a proposal to allow customs officials to carry firearms through airports without first acquiring temporary permits. Auditors said some 6,500 agents were issued firearms from an inventory of 12,600 guns and 10 million rounds of ammunition. Physical verifications by an independent oversight functions were no longer performed. Fifth of the land crossing inspected at random did not have functioning security cameras. Why would they, I guess, right? At 3 of the 15 sites were reserved gaps in access controls. Wow, this is a massive failure. 25% of the sample currency seizures did not reconcile. That's an odd one, no? So you got money. We cannot state with certainty that these discrepancies are a result of human error versus asset misappropriation. So they seized stuff, and this we did this story a while ago. And this included not just cash, but seizures of drugs, seizures of goods. That, what was it, 25%? I can't remember. You have to go back and watch the show. 25% of the stuff not accounted for properly or misappropriated.
Yeah.
Or. But you got to do better.
Sometimes it's almost like you lift the skirt up of the Canadian state and you don't see much to inspire you. It's kind of like the diseased body. It might have a nice dress on, but underneath, dear God.
Well, let's see if they do something with this. The Justice Minister, Sean Fraser, is expected to introduce a new bill today, a crime bill designed to toughen bail sentencing standards. And we painfully listened to some of those people in committee there, some of the speeches they made there. But it'll be interesting to see if this is actually the tougher legislation that everybody's looking for or not.
Well, one positive sign, perhaps, if you're of that opinion, that you want tougher rules in place. A positive sign is that the Conservative reaction to this is, oh, they've just copied us.
Well, that'd be good.
So, yeah, perhaps if you're into that kind of thing, if you're into harder, more sort of strenuous justice, then that might well be on the cards.
Someone just said, notice our news logo is a Masonic 3-on-3 pattern. That's nice.
I find that so funny, the Freemasons, conspiracy theories and all that. I mean, might be true for all I know, but I do find it quite funny. I've met quite a lot of Freemasons, and they're just like old dudes. They're just totally normal people. It's just a bit of a laugh.
So here they come, yeah. So anyway, so the Liberal shows that. So first, if you don't like the message, discredit the messengers, right? So there you go.
Wow, he's all in. He's all in on the Freemasons.
Nice.
I mean, well, credit to you. Not many people around like that. Usually nowadays, it's more like aliens, anti-Semitic memes. Although the Freemasons is often linked to anti-Semitism, isn't it? The meme, I mean. Who else controls the world? Qatar. A lot of people say Qatar controls the world.
I thought you had to be smart to be in the Freemasons. I don't think I'd make the cut.
Well, you got to memorize a pretty long handshake, haven't you? I don't know if I could do that.
I don't like those fancy robes and all that stuff either, so I'm not into that stuff. This one is super puzzling. This one is like absolutely contradictory and a direct contradiction to Mark Carney. Mark Carney, when asked in his campaign, said, China's the biggest threat. He said, he was asked, what's the biggest threat to Canada? Which nation? China. Anita Anand says Canada is in a strategic partnership with China. Even our friend Andrew Coyne there is like, what?
Yeah, I mean, if the penny drops for Coyne, then you're in trouble. Definitely, as a Liberal. I don't know. I mean, in a way, I look at this and I think, because they say, another thing, they say they want to have a constructive and pragmatic relationship with China. I kind of look at that and I think, yeah, that's probably right, isn't it? But the flip-flopping really, it doesn't instill you with confidence, does it, in our rulers, our dear leaders? But I think this is probably, it's a Carney directive, isn't it? And he just wants to maximize leverage around the world, and he wants to maximize revenues, I suppose, if you look at it like that. And obviously you can't do that without China, but it does make him look a little bit silly. It certainly makes the Liberal Party look silly.
Well, China has its tentacles wrapped all around Canada. I mean, they want an investigation in PEI. We see this stuff going on in the Vancouver ports. They talk about Chinese and Mexican cartels working together to ship fentanyl. I mean, New Zealand just had that record bust, and it came from a Vancouver port. And the FBI and the DEA say that there's Mexican cartels and Chinese gangs working together up here in Canada. And then how many election interference were there? They had that one guy that Carney stood behind, and then the RCMP started an investigation. He dropped out on his own. And then there's that link in the Wuhan lab thing and the Winnipeg labs, which we still don't get the information from. Justin Trudeau is likely going to take that with him on his Katy Perry tour.
Well, it's also the fact that the Chinese have proved themselves to be a terrible security risk and economic risk. Like, look what they've done with canola, where they get canola sellers on the hook. They get them hooked on Chinese custom, and then all of a sudden they just kill it because it serves their sort of broader geopolitical goals. You know, and that's, I mean, we could just talk endlessly about the dangers that that China presents, but it is also a very large economy, isn't it? So you kind of have to be realistic.
Again, go back if you're just the first time here. Go back. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. Canada sent China $109 million. The economy that is the second largest in the world. We sent them $109 million for climate change, gender equality, and human rights.
While at the same time, I can't remember the last time a senior Canadian politician said a single thing about Tibet. Remember Tibet? That's just gone now, hasn't it? It's like Tibet's like an independent nation, with a very old history, a very proud old history. It's an ethnicity, the Tibetan people. It's got their own language and everything, and they were just annexed, completely taken over in, I think it was 1949. And ever since then, they've been squashed. Any attempt to regain independence has been brutally stamped down. Like, when was the last time you heard anything about that? When was the last time you heard any sort of sympathy with Taiwan, which is a country, but nobody calls it a country because it would upset China? You know, it's like this.
How many?
It's just the hypocrisy of it. You can't take them seriously because they're just too hypocritical.
How many questions have the government-funded media asked Mark Carney about the $1 billion to the Chinese shipbuilders there of Canadian tax dollars? How many have asked that question?
Yeah, still none.
Doctors like that liquor warning, though. This is from Hollywood on Blacklocks as well. Canadian Medical Association yesterday endorsed a Senate bill for mandatory health warnings on liquor, beer, alcohol. Alcohol-related deaths, 17,000 a year on average. That's according to the Department of Health. And they say that's likely larger, but, you know, we know alcohol consumption leads to over 800,000 hospital emergency room visits each year. And this is Bill S-202, an act to amend the Food and Drug Act that would mandate alcohol products carry a label warning against the risk of alcohol consumption. I don't know. I was smoking back when I was in my younger years, like as a 20-something-year-old, and they started putting the warning labels on the cigarettes. I don't think it did anything for me. You know, I quit on my own, not because of the warning labels, but I don't know.
If you ever speak to a ear, nose, and throat doctor, like the experts in, you know, that area of the body, they tell you the worst thing that you can do is drink and smoke at the same time. Apparently that like really intensifies the damage. So I think it's kind of, alcohol definitely very dangerous, but lots and lots of people who drink obviously do it while smoking. It's the two go together, don't they? Quite nicely for some people. And it's just like absolutely devastating for your health.
I mean, I don't drink. My dad was an alcoholic. So I think somebody said that too. My dad was an alcoholic. Destroyed our family with alcoholism. We never had a good Christmas. We grew up dirt poor, though, as well. My wife's family, both her parents were alcoholics. Both died early, as well as my dad. And I've seen alcohol destroy many a family. And, you know, I know that it's also a great social thing for when you're young, and it's like it's a social, I guess, social laxative. How's that a fair word? I think they say like social laxative. Sometimes it might be a social laxative, and then, but it definitely can cause a lot of issues if, you know. So
no doubt.
There's a lot of people that experience the same thing. But let's move on to something. I'm not sure how much she consumes, but she definitely is. She's definitely very loose, this lady, with the Dancing Queen. I mean, she should have that title. Her and Justin Trudeau could go on tour. And the Dancing Queen, not a lot of people liking the Dancing Queen right now. She might be on her way out. So when does Ontario municipal elections happen? When can we see the first time that Olivia Chow has to be serious about what she does for a living?
Let me quickly
Because
Google
Alberta
that,
just had their
and I'll tell you.
Alberta just had their municipal elections. Ours are coming up. Ours are coming up this year.
So it's next year.
No, ours are
The next election is October 26, 2026. All the 26s.
When is BC? I think ours are in 26 too, aren't they? Or this year?
Yeah, next year. Yeah.
So there you go. But Alberta had theirs. Just had theirs. And then if you want a little bit of fun, there you go. Here's your meme for you. This one's for the lightning rod. Oh. And there's a billboard campaign taken out by a bunch of manufacturers that are saying the same thing. Like, you can't blame everything on Trump. Same thing as the BC NDP. They straw man Trump all the time. But I mean, it's been neglect of the forest industry for years and years and years. And Stephen Guilbeault.
I'm not sure about that AI Mark Carney though. Doesn't quite look like him. It looks like one of the actors, supporting actors that's in loads of American films. I can't remember his name.
I think
maybe somebody can recognize it.
With a little longer nose, isn't that Cecile de Bergerac, or how do you pronounce that name? Cecilia.
Oh, Cyrano de Bergerac.
There you go.
Yeah, I guess so, actually. But it's just got it all wrong. Whereas Trudeau, that's like a really good representation of Justin Trudeau, but it couldn't get a Carney.
That's a better looking Trudeau than he actually is.
Yeah, probably.
And then here's our friend Stephen Guilbeault. You know, the carbon guy that doesn't want you to fly around, but apparently he flies business class. So I guess the business class doesn't eat as much carbon. Apparently.
Well, he's pulling in the big bucks, isn't he, old Guilbeault? So I guess he can afford it. Though I'm sure he didn't pay for it out of his salary.
And then here we listen to Mark Carney defend the industrial carbon tax, and just think back where there's these speeches. You can just replay these speeches here. Let's listen in on it.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to quote independent research, Mr. Speaker, of the Canadian Climate Institute, which finds that the impact of the industrial carbon tax. Now, wait for the net impact of the industrial carbon tax on food prices. It is on average around 0%.
I think we've heard this before. Like, carbon tax doesn't add to inflation, and remember that it doesn't add to inflation. And lo and behold, they take it off and just look at the inflation drop. And this is going to be the same thing for this. And this is the last time I'm going to talk with, because now he's attacking me personally on my youth. Yeah, we grew up dirt poor. That's why I fight for Canada, because Canada can be better. The last 10 years, Jean Chrétien was my personal hero. I got to actually introduce him here in Kelowna. And when he spoke for us here in Kelowna, as long as Stephen Harper, but Jean Chrétien was my. But these liberals are not liberals. These are elitists. This is not the Liberal Party of yesterday. So thank you very much for everything you have to say there, buddy. I work. I think I've worked most of my life with 2 or 3 jobs, and I work 7 days a week. And 12-hour days is not uncommon for me. So there you go. So yeah, I've worked hard, and I own a Tesla. And that's not the world's most luxurious vehicle. They're now almost the average cost of the vehicle, the Model Y. So that's the one I drive, the Model Y. So there you go.
And lots of people buy them because they want to save money. They don't buy them for luxury. They buy them because they want cheaper running costs.
I'm an accountant. The Model Y, no, you don't have to censor them. Somebody asked me if you want to, no, you let them yap. The Model Y is actually, cheaper, and especially cheaper to operate on a regular basis. So yeah. So again, another myth there, just saying stuff that you can just kind of like mouth off and then not say anything. Here's our friend though that mouths off a lot. Asked about censorship or bias at the CBC.
So there would be no bias at the CBC?
Well, I would say that that's not our policy, that's not our practice. I'm not oblivious to the fact that some people claim there is bias, but that's not how we
Your
work.
perception. What's your perception? You're the head of the organization. What's your perception?
My perception is that we are working very hard to try and bring accurate, factual-based news and information to Canadians every day.
So no bias at the CBC, according to you.
No bias, according to me.
Just, you heard it right there from the horse's mouth. And lightning rod there.
What is
buddy.
she on, man? This is terrible.
Lightning rod, buddy. Somebody asked me if they wanted to silence you, and I said no. So there you go. So CBC, you don't get to do this. You don't get to converse with anybody. They don't turn on their comments. So thank you. Thank you very much.
They don't engage at all. And look at that. Not only do they not engage with their audience, who literally pay their salaries. You know, you lot don't pay for our salaries. You don't give us any money. You're just kind of here on YouTube and we're just chatting together. We literally pay the salaries of CBC reporters, and they refuse to engage in any way with the people who foot the bill for their, you know, their lives. And then here we are, the head of CBC is asked a really obvious question and refuses even to engage with reality.
Yeah.
Even reality is something that's beneath her. It's like, oh, reality. Who let you in here? Get out.
we could sit here all day and talk about their bias. Rosemary Barton, I mean, just here's case in point. Rosemary Barton doing the trucker rally. She came on almost right away as soon as they started the GoFundMe, which blew up. Like $10 million, I think, was in a day. That was Russian money. No basis in that at all. None. And then she said it was Trump. No basis in that at all. No apology either.
And then she started talking about all these murdered children that had been found. And CBC had to come out and put in a little line underneath her story saying, sorry, everyone, shh, that's not true.
And
but
then
Rosemary never had to say anything about it.
Her and David Cochrane at the leadership debate said that they felt their lives were threatened because they got to the podium faster because I guess they were more fit than those two, and they could actually get to the microphone faster. And then they were so peeved that Rebel News, and I think it was Juno that got to the microphone first. And then they even called into question their audacity to ask questions that weren't kind of on the list of questions to ask, right?
And bear in mind, I'm pretty sure, if my memory's not betraying me here, that one of the questions that Mark Carney was asked was, what is a woman? And that really, really upset everybody, didn't it? That was like somebody had taken the microphone and just farted into it. That's kind of how they reacted there. But it's very interesting to bear in mind. We were talking about, with John Kay, we were talking about the British media and the American media. In both of those countries, the leaders have been asked that question, what is a woman? In Britain, quite famously, Keir Starmer was asked that question and couldn't come up with an answer. And he's been asked it numerous times and has changed his answer to that question. It's just, it gives you a bit of an insight just to circle back, as they say, to Mark Carney saying that we've got this glorious, vibrant public square. Do we really? Where that question was asked and it was looked upon as though the person that asked it had disgraced themselves. Whereas you look at countries like Britain, a very troubled country, and it's fine. That question has been asked many times of the Prime Minister. You just you have to actually engage with, unlike the CBC's president there, or whatever her job title is, you have to engage with reality and with evidence.
Remember her salary? We talked about it, was it yesterday or the day before we talked about her salary? She's doing okay.
I've never forgotten it. Never forgotten it. 537,000, I believe.
That's the base salary. Yeah, and then
she gets extra money for losing 50% of the audience.
we leave the comments here, but don't spam the same thing over and over and over, because then we do have to kind of like silence that one. Just be nice and just say it once. You don't have to say it a zillion times, and then because otherwise it just irritates everybody else that's trying to converse on here. And we welcome it as long as you're not attacking each other or saying really bad things. But me and Ian have fairly thick skin. Sometimes we get a little riled up, but at least we converse. We have a BC section for you. We have a BC section. We actually like Lightning Rod. Like, we're just glad that he comes here.
Yeah, he's a good lad. Keeps us on our toes.
He's like our ChatGPT. Actually, we're going to probably put Aura on the show one day here. As Aura, I talk to Aura all the time. The Conservative Party sent out a letter to the leader, John Rustad, asking for his resignation. I mean, I called it, I think, last week that I don't think he'd last the week. He's got a couple of days left if my, guess is right. I think, like the shoe dropped when he kicked Eleanor Sturko out of the party. I think that was a really bad move.
Yeah.
And then I interviewed Amelia Boltby. Was it just this week or was it last week? I think the end of last week.
I think it was Friday, wasn't it? Yeah.
And she was spitting nails. And then, there's been quite a bit of, even from the Conservative, and here's the Conservative Party itself, but a lot of Conservatives, even in other provinces, have asked John Rustad to step down. And I remember we had Jonathan Kay in, and he said, like, and he wasn't not a friend of the NDP or the Conservatives. He says, like, what is literally going on here in BC? He said, are you guys okay out here? You got to go listen to that interview. That is one of the better interviews we've done all year with Jonathan Kay. It's about an hour and a half, and it's well worth listening to. But he was worried about BC.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and trying to he's almost trying to rescue the province, wasn't he? From the east, trying to say it quite sort of, but being very comical about it.
I keep getting sucked into the lightning round. I didn't say you were ChatGPT. You got to listen carefully. I said maybe we should bring on ChatGPT and you act like our ChatGPT. There you go. So, come on. Anyway, I almost said something.
But yeah, this about John Rustad. Yeah, I mean, it does kind of it looks a bit like the end, doesn't it? But the only question is, what we don't know is how many kind of like true believers does he have?
Well, I think
how many of the king's bodyguard are there willing to kind of die in battle for John Rustad? I don't know, because sometimes when that's the case, these can be quite difficult situations to work through. And he does seem to have inspired quite a lot of people, and he has a kind of cadre of loyalists, doesn't he?
I mean, huge credit to him. He brought a party out of nowhere, and took it almost to government. And I think that misstep with Falcon, he would have formed government. But I mean, a lot of those. I think a lot of the people that will stick right by his side won the election with the blue C, and that's from Pierre Poilievre, right? It was this blue sign. And, like there's a lot of first-time politicians in his party that likely won't win if there's let's just pick for instance, say an Eleanor Sturko takes over the party. Like she's probably going to take more center of the road type people. And a lot of these first-timers that haven't done a lot or done a lot of interviews, or any interviews for that matter, may not make it in this, and then you.
Well, she's like a professional, isn't she? That's another way of putting it. Eleanor Sturgo's a pro. You can just tell it. As a journalist, I interviewed her a while ago. Right away, when I was speaking to her, within like 10 seconds, I was like, okay, she's a pro. She knows exactly what she's doing. And there is you need a certain amount of professionalization, don't you, in a party? It needs to be professional. I would say John Rustad is actually, he does come across quite good a lot of the time. He does come across quite professional, but behind the scenes, this does not look like a professional outfit, does it?
Yeah, and I think, there's a couple big missteps. And I think even when he went after Amelia Boltby there, like when he brought out like 4 or 5 MPs.
Yeah, it's unprofessional.
I think they all had their heads down. He went after about her, mental health and stuff like that. It just didn't. Even if that's true, it doesn't come across very well, right? You're attacking somebody on their mental health issues and dragging it into the public square, and saying like she can leave because she's basic. You know what I mean? I won't even you get what's going on, right? It's just not good, and I interviewed Gavin Dew a couple of weeks ago on this, and I said David Eby must be rubbing his hands together because. They can make a big mess, and they are making a big mess. But they can say, well, look at that. Do you want that? That'll be worse. And because, that party is frayed. They lost 3 almost right away when he booted out Dallas Brody. And then, I think Tara Armstrong, and who's the other guy that left with Dallas Brody?
I can't remember his name, but he went as well. Yeah, but he didn't join 1BC, did he? But he kind of left at the same time.
So there's 2 in 1BC, so it's actually 2 BC, one BC. And then I just interviewed Corinne Kirkpatrick, a former MLA, I think it was out of Richmond. She started Centre BC, And I asked her if Eleanor Sturko takes over the Conservative Party. This was last week. I said, does it nullify your party because Eleanor Sturko would be more center-right? And I think one of the key things that in that Jonathan Kay interview, and I thought it was really good, because he has a lot of knowledge, because he wrote Justin Trudeau's memoirs, so he's very connected to all these people, Jolie and he knows a lot of these people. He said that it was kind of like he didn't believe in Stephen Harper could become prime minister, but he said what BC needs is a Stephen or Stephanie Harper. They need somebody that can actually coalesce the center, bring them together like Stephen Harper did, because that was a fractured party too when the Conservatives. Stephen Harper brought that party together, and they need somebody strong that is like center right, that can bring people from like the sides. I believe here. I think I'm running the campaign desk for Eleanor Sturko here. I believe Eleanor Sturko could actually draw from the NDP. Like she could draw, probably can like Rustad got people to walk across from the United. Sturko might be able to do that with the NDP, and obviously there's going to be people in the Conservative Party right now that are not going to like losing John Rustad as well, because I think they look at their own political future and they think it's over.
Well, it'll take them back, in their mind, it'll take them back to BC United days, where they felt like BC United was just a left-wing party or a liberal party, and they thought that they were being completely ignored. So they thought they wanted to join and boost what they considered to be a real conservative outfit. So yeah, there'll be people that feel extremely aggrieved if that is what happens, if it's like a centre-right takeover or a centrist takeover. But another way to put it is, look, BC is a pretty darn liberal place, isn't it? It's a pretty sort of centrist, centre-left, in many cases, rather left.
Well, it's a very center.
You've got to be realistic, haven't you? You can't just stand there with a sign and be a crank and never get into power. Like, you do have to be realistic. You have to be honest with yourself. And I think put yourself in the shoes of the NDP. Imagine you're David Eby now. What do you least want to happen? I would guess that it is Eleanor Sturko to come in, be the leader, or somebody like Eleanor Sturko, come in, become the leader, and kind of revolutionize that party and professionalize that party. That's what you would want the least if you were David Eby. What you want the most is more of this.
Somebody just said that I was pretty sympathetic to, I was a spokesperson for the Centre Party and boosting it's Kirkpatrick, not Kilpatrick, Kirkpatrick. And I was very nice to her. And I think you said that to me as well. You said you were pretty soft on her. And I think I was a bit sympathetic for sure. She was a CPA as well. And, she doesn't have a seat, right? So she doesn't have any power. So, and I do believe that BC is a centrist province. And I think somebody is going to have to find a way to find the center, because even Jason Kenney claims that John Horgan said that David Eby was a mud hutter. And he said that Horgan said, who's going to prove that now? Horgan was worried about the extremist, the David Eby in his party. There you go.
These are vulnerabilities that a sort of switched on opposition could exploit and do well with.
So somebody said, why don't these people find you? That's funny. And it's Bill C-18, by the way. So I don't know, why don't they find us? Because we just started on this road again, so we're going to plug away.
If you read the research that's been done on this, on Bill C-18, it's all over the place. Just read some of my stories. I've written about 50 of them. If you actually look in the reports, it's explained quite clearly that people weren't going in search of news per se. And most people, most Canadians anyway, don't do that. They don't go, okay, kelownanow.com, enter, or like CBC. They don't do that. They were just coming upon it on their Facebook feed. And Facebook is obviously the big boss of social media. So once it was removed from Facebook, this is what the data show. Most people don't even know that that's happened.
And
because
why
they weren't going out of their way to get news.
Yeah, and here's the question for you.
That's why.
And then here's the answer for you as well. Why is the Liberal Party paying Meta millions and millions of dollars to put their message on Facebook? If the people can just go to the Liberal website and find them, they know where to find them, don't they? Do you know what I mean?
Lightning rod there, mate. I'm sorry, you Search for the "but I had breakfast this morning" meme. Just type that into Google. I had breakfast this morning. You just committed that. You just committed that sin. Repent.
Anyway, we're gonna probably skip a couple things because we're running pretty late actually. We can come back to some of this stuff tomorrow. You put in here something, the opportunity cost of BC government debt. This is from the Fraser Institute. We're going to put up that graphic there. British Columbians could see lower tax bill if government debt was reduced. Yeah.
This is the reason I put this in there, and the reason I think this is so interesting is these bullet points. We've got the graph, we've got the graphic there, but the bullet points that we have that we're looking at now, it just shows you how much is spent on debt.
A decade ago, BC is the lowest debt provinces in Canada, and this is a decade of NDP. After a period of significant spending growth, nominal debt is projected to reach $155 billion by 27-28. That's more than 4 times BC's nominal net debt in 2016-2017. And that comes with debt because British Columbia cannot create dollars. We cannot print money. We don't have that ability like the federal government does. We don't have the Bank of Canada. So we have to sell debt. And that's how they get those credit ratings. And that we've been marked down twice on. And every time we mark it down, and we get marked down on the credit rating, it means our credit cost goes up because the lower your debt quality, the higher your interest that you have to pay. Make sense?
And yeah, our debt quality has been, or British Columbia's debt quality has been declining.
Downgraded a couple times, yeah.
But it's just mega, isn't it? This money's huge, and this is what the reason that I thought it was interesting is because they use that phrase, opportunity cost. Yeah. It's really important to bear that in mind because debt is often looked at as it's almost like consequence free. And then they try and bamboozle you by talking about things like debt to GDP ratio. That's just all a lot of bollocks, really. But what they should say to you is, we're choosing this debt. We're choosing to accrue this debt rather than spend the money on something else. Because to do that, to acquire a big chunk of debt, means that they have to move something out of the budget so that they can pay for the interest payments, and that part of the pie just keeps growing and growing and growing. Because if you're a responsible government, you're supposed to think about all kinds of things like growth of the economy and growth as related to how much debt you're taking on. But a lot of the provinces and Canada itself have just stopped doing that in recent years, and so now it's starting to become, it's like a fixed pie, and it starts to become about like distribution within that pie. So if we're getting lots of debt, that means that we're going to lose our ability to pay for other things that we might want.
We're going to skip this Trump story in our international news because we are running a bit late here. But I did want to show you this another horrific truck crash. And go back one. Another horrific truck crash. This is in Ontario, not Ontario, Canada, but in California there. Again, this is an unlicensed driver. We're going to listen in on the clip here. Let's play this clip here. It's horrific though, so get ready. If you don't want to see this, I mean, it doesn't show, but yeah.
Now take a look. This is exclusive dash cam video that is now the subject of several law enforcement investigations. Shows the moment a red semi-truck plowed into a number of vehicles on the westbound 10 freeway in Ontario just after 1 p.m. yesterday. The CHP told the LA Times the driver of this big rig is a 21-year-old man who is now under arrest on suspicion of driving under the influence of drugs. A total of 4 semis were involved and also 4 passenger vehicles, one of them exploding in flames. 3 people were killed and 4 others were taken to local hospitals. This horrific crash happened just east of the 15 freeway and shut down all westbound lanes for more than 12 hours. Thousands of drivers were trapped in the gridlock just as the evening commute was getting underway. It also happened near the Ontario airport, so the crash likely delayed people that were...
So this is Fox is reporting that it was an illegal immigrant truck driver and that he was under the influence, that he was released under the Biden administration in 2022 after crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. He never hit his brakes, they say, when he crashed in the slow-moving traffic on the freeway. 3 people dead. He has been arrested on suspicion of gross vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated, and ICE has placed an immigration detainer following his arrest. And there is other video of this guy that's circulating on the internet that's showing him cooking while he's driving in the truck as well.
Well, I want to know, like, I mean, I already know the answer to this. There is nothing you can do, but what are you supposed to do in that situation when you see a truck coming behind you? Like, you don't have time to act, or you think it's going to break anyway, don't you? You think, oh no, he's going a bit quick, but he will break. It's kind of like what I hate so much about that and this kind of crash is you're just like totally helpless. There seems like there's nothing you can do.
So one of the things I used to do, because I rode motorcycle a lot and also lived in Edmonton in the winter, and when I came to lights, I would stop way behind the light, you know, like in the flow of traffic, and leave a big buffer so I could move up. And it saved my life.
Yeah.
Actually, I was on a motorcycle here in Kelowna, and I was at a light, and I stopped, like, I was the first person in the light, and I stopped, I think, like 50 feet back from the light. You know, most people would get angry at you, and I just wait for the car to get behind me, right? And then so I'm sitting there and just watch my rearview mirrors, and sure enough, here's a guy coming at me. The smoke's coming off his wheels as he's about to plow in me, so I moved up, right? And then I was gonna, you know, like yell at him, but I could see his girlfriend was already doing that job for me. She was screaming at him, and I was like, well, he's probably getting enough. Do you know what I mean? But it just happened to me a few times in Edmonton too, because, you know, like at a light, some people just come skating up behind you, and build that buffer instead of like getting right. You know, like some people just think they get that mentality they got to be up against the bumper of that other vehicle.
Yeah.
If you give yourself some room, do you know what I mean? That you can escape. Always have an escape pattern. If you give yourself, you know, a few car lengths, then you're not crowded in there. The bad part in places like that is that you leave that room and then people will kind of dodge in front of you, right?
Exactly, yeah. They'd be in a second, wouldn't they? But they say to do that in places like South Africa, where that hijacking is common. They say that always make sure that you're ready to go if you need to.
Like I took a defensive driving course when I was younger because I was told to. But yeah, so we got a couple other stories here, and this one here is in recognition of my mother and father here. This is tens of thousands of Hungarians. I'm going to play this clip here. Tens of thousands of Hungarians on Budapest today for the March of Peace to commemorate the 1956 Hungarian uprising. Both my parents escaped Hungary during that time and came to Canada. Both were refugees from that uprising. I guess you know some people would call it a war, but my mother said, she was in university at the time, that it was. Is there a clip you can play, or? And you can just see the amount of people. But I think she was labeled as a terrorist. She was at university, 19 years old when she left. Her and her brother. And they ended up in France, and then they handed out brochures, and she ended up in Canada because she liked the photos of the Mounties and the igloos in the brochure. Her younger brother was a year younger. He joined the French Foreign Legion. She was labeled as a terrorist, couldn't talk to her parents for 20 years, and then she never talked to her brother because he joined the French Foreign Legion, which was a secret kind of army at that time. I met him later. He was a tank commander there. And you know, like their whole lives were turned upside down there. She said the reason they did it, in her mind, anyway, what she remembers, is that Free America Radio kept playing, the Allies are on the way, keep fighting. The Allies were never coming, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
And then the Russians had left for a while, so you know, they kind of pulled out of Budapest, and so that the Hungarians were actually lynching the AVO, the secret police, and then the tanks rolled back in, the Russian tanks, and then, you know, tough to fight Russian tanks with Molotov cocktails.
That was a real awakening for a lot of people who thought, still even then, thought the Soviet Union was some kind of utopia full of like wonderful people and internationalists and whatnot. When they saw those tanks, it was beyond doubt what the Soviet Union was, that it was a totalitarian regime.
Yeah, it was. My mother's life was a lot different. She was part of the Second World War. She was a child. She was born in 1938, and her house was used as a Russian command post. So she was living in the house because they were the servants for the Russians. Her dad was captured by the English. She was in an English POW camp. And she said she didn't see her father for so many years, and she came home one day And there's this man sitting there, because when he left for war, he was, she was very young. And there's this man sitting there with his boots on the table, and she's like, who's this strange man? Turns out that was her father home from the POW camp. But yeah, and then under Russian rule forever. And they told they told the kids that the parents don't mean anything. We've heard this before, right? Socialism, communism. You owe your allegiance to the boss of the Communist Party, Socialist Party. The parents mean nothing.
To the state, yeah.
State, yeah. Here's some good news for you. I've talked about Wealthsimple a million times. Wealthsimple now lets you trade gold with 0 fees. It's pretty cool. Wealthsimple also lets you trade, it's Canadian, you trade stocks, zero transactional fees, and you can buy fractional shares. I've got a lot of people involved in it. It's actually amazing. So here now you can buy gold with 0 fees. And then some other news, Tesla released its numbers yesterday, and they said Optimus version 3 is coming in Q1 2026. An all-robot coming to a place near you.
Unveil, but not put it on sale then.
They're going to start production next year as well. So
right.
We'll go
So this is just a teaser kind of thing coming in next year.
And then this one is significant. This is the energy deployment of Tesla's energy. You can see it. And Elon Musk made a bold statement yesterday. He said, get ready for this. Listen up, David Eby, Mark Carney, that Elon could double the capacity of the grids in the United States just with battery storage. Because, and we've talked about this many times, electricity, people should get an understanding of how electricity works. It's a pull thing as opposed to a push thing. So it's draw, right? So again, if you think of like dams, so electricity is pulled through the system. When you want it, it pulls it, right? So that's why they have peaker plants and stuff like that. So in the daytime, obviously, it's pulling a lot of electricity. But in the nighttime, like electrical demand goes down. So then the production from those places goes down. But if you could always pull like a constant production rate and store it, then during peak times, you pull from the batteries. And that's why if people really understood how cars could work, and they're piloting this in Texas right now. So if the cars, the EVs, are plugged into the grid charging at night, and then you drive them to work, and you plug them in again at work, and during peak demands, instead of firing up a peaker plant, you can just draw from the EVs. Crazy, eh? So he said he could double the capacity of the current electrical grid without putting in any more production plants. Pretty bold claim.
Yeah, although I'm sure he would argue that you should definitely put in more production as well. Yeah,
it's everything. And also Tesla is creating their own LFP, and they're actually mining their own lithium and processing their own lithium as well. And they're going to begin production in 2026 Q1. Those are amazing things. And this, why I bring it up is, like, for some strange reason, the Canadian government has vilified this man that could be a huge help to Canada. And even, with climate goals and all that stuff, Elon Musk has the answer. And then when I listen, that's why I say climate grifting all the time, because if you gave a hoot about climate, you would listen to what Elon Musk has to say. He has the solution, but they won't listen to it. And I talk to so many people and argue about it. I have solar on my roof, I drive an EV, and I believe in it. But these people are just running climate grifts, and that's the difference, right? There's the real solution. It's right there before you. But, carbon capture is just a grift. Anyway. That's it.
Just seem inferior to a kind of something bolder, a plan to really build something like even fusion or fission, like more nuclear power plants or solar or anything. That all seems to be, that's like positive rather than negative, which is how I look at carbon capture. It's like, let's dig a hole, put stuff in it and hide it. It's almost like something FDR would tell people to do during the Great Depression, like go and sweep up leaves or something, just so that you can have a job.
I'm a big believer in uranium as well, and I've been investing in uranium for a long time. There's lots of great uranium companies in Canada. Cameco, one of those. Denison. Saskatchewan, or uranium hotbed for the thing. SMRs, it's some great Canadian technology. Yet I think we're only putting one into place here right now. And here, in, lo and behold, in British Columbia, SMRs are banned. Even if we had a nuclear sub, it wouldn't be allowed to come into the Vancouver harbor.
Windmills, however, we got them.
Or a diesel sub. A diesel submarine.
Or a sailboat. You know, let's go back to the Napoleonic era.
Maybe we could, you know, like if, yeah, doesn't matter. We're too long already today. So. I hope you join us tomorrow, Lightning Rod. And then there you go. You know what? Elon Musk doesn't have unions because they tried to unionize them many times. And the people don't want to unionize. Even the ones in Europe, the employees are quite happy not being in the union because they get stock options. They seem to like it. They tried really hard in Europe to unionize the Tesla Gigafactory in Berlin, you know. Sweden and them trying to ban their products and all that. Didn't work. Anyway, cheers. Until tomorrow. Thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.